Yo! I have my hair down today. It feels very weird. I just cut my own hair. Honestly, I cut it. I cut my hair myself. I cut it with my own hands. Sasha, what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, okay? This is how you know you have to wash your hair. But no! We're just gonna tuck it behind here. Hi, babies! I know you guys hate when I do that little baby voice. It's me. Today, I'm going to talk about, cringe. I know I'm orange, by the way. It's just the camera. Like, a lot of people ask me, like, in certain videos and stuff, my hair looks a different color, and sometimes my hair looks redder, sometimes it looks like lighter. It's just the setting of the camera. Sometimes my camera is like, fuck off, Sash, and my hair will be like red, which is, you know, bomb, and then sometimes it'll be like super duper light, and then, you know, that's bomb too, but you know, it's just the camera. I didn't color my hair. And I'm not orange. I mean, I am. I get super orange when I tan. Today's video is going to be a couple of short stories all meshed into one with a theme of school. I've seen a couple of YouTubers do this where they like compile short stories into one video, and that's what I thought I would do today because I don't really have a huge traumatic story about me in school. I don't know. Maybe I have. I just forget maybe I have, except I forgot it probably because I can't remember it. So today I have 3 stories for you about my school. It was fucking embarrassing and traumatic. Let's start. Let's go. My first story is going to be a story where I was caught skipping class. I never skipped class. I still don't. This is way back in Sweden though. All these 3 stories are back in Sweden. Or which way is that? This was 2 years ago or a year ago. Recently new. It was my last year of high school in Sweden. I don't know if you call that because the last time I did the high school experience story, a lot of Swedes got mad at me. You know what I mean though. High school, or like, you know, last year before you go into the gymnasium. I was in my senior year before I went into the gymnasium, and you know, I thought I was so cool. Like, oh my god, I'm a senior. I'm graduating from these young ass bitches. So I never skipped class, but I hated gym class so much in Sweden because like our guys in my grade, they were just super unfair with us. Sometimes they would never like pass me the ball because they, you know, they never would pass me the ball ever, like in any sport. So I hated gym class, and one time in gym class, we were going cross-country skiing. And if you know anything about me, I hate cross-country skiing. Like, I love sporting, I love being outside, I'm a very active person, but holy hell do I hate cross-country skiing. It's so boring. So boring! So, my girlfriends also hated cross-country skiing, so in my class, if you didn't want to do the assignment, or if you couldn't do the assignment because if you had like a broken whatever, if you were having pain or issues or whatever, you can take a walk. So we went up to our gym teacher and we said, okay, so me, this girl and this girl and this girl, we want to go take a walk. There are probably like 5 of us. We've already cross-country skied like a bunch of times before with you, and we were total bitches, oh my gosh. We were like, we've already cross-country skied a little bit, and we kind of want to go on a walk right now. Come back at the end of the class, and, you know, we've done our assignment. Of course, he bought it, because a lot of people did that, and one of the girls was actually having, like, pain or something somewhere. We started walking, and of course, we walk a little bit, like, around our area where our school was, and right next to our school, like a half a mile from our school, there's a cafe. You know where this is going. And of course, we like walk a little bit at first. We like walk around, and then we were like, so, I mean, we've kind of walked a little bit, you know, it doesn't hurt if we just sit and chill at the cafe for a sec. So me and my girlfriends go in. So we walk into this cafe, we sit down, and we have a cup of tea, and we just chill, have a little Swedish fika. We basically had a cup of coffee and like some dessert or whatever. We sat there for like, yeah, the end of class basically. So we walked like 15 minutes, and then we're like, let's just sit down. So we sat for the rest of the hour, and then we went back, and we're like, we told our gym teacher after we went, nothing about it. We just told him, that was a great walk, bye. Because we were seniors, we're like, we don't have to do this, we're getting out of here. He didn't ask anything about it. Like, he was no suspicious, like, because why would he? Like, why would we lie? So we had gym class twice a week, and the next time we had gym, we did the exact same thing. Now, the times where we actually would walk would get shortened. So we would kind of walk around so it looked like we were walking, and then kind of go. But after a while, we just went straight because he didn't suspect nothing. And we were dumb bitches. It's so cringy. This happened over the entire first quarter. So we would do this basically, we probably did it for like 4 months, not gonna lie. So one time, me and my girlfriends were just chilling at the cafe. And in the beginning, we kind of sat way back because we were like, oh my god, if he actually like comes in, like we can kind of hide. Well, we got cockier and cockier, obviously, because, oh, we were so dumb. So at the end of the year, we actually just sat in front and we didn't give a fuck. We just sat there and we were just like, eh. Oh my god, we were so dumb. So one day, we all sit at the front of the cafe. We're just having our, like, you know, gymly, like, cup of tea and just like couple of cookies, like we were so dumb. We're just chilling, suspecting nothing. All of a sudden, this is the cringiest moment of my life. Roger, our gym teacher, comes into the cafe and we didn't like notice at first. Like we just kind of looked at him and didn't like place it in our brain like, oh shit, we aren't supposed to be here. We just look at him and then we all realized and we were like, what do we do? Do we run? Do we hide or commit? Like what can we commit with in this room? Needless to say, he walked up to us and he was like, so how was your walk? It's so embarrassing. Me and these 4 girls, oh my gosh, I just kind of hide. Like I was just like, oh my god. And I am not the one to like speak up or anything when it comes to that. Like I was just sitting there and I was just like dying. Like inside I was like, oh my god, my mom is literally gonna brutally murder me. B, Roger, like my grade in gym was gonna go from an like A to like, you're cut, bitch. So this one girl who's still one of my best friends, she was like, oh my god, Roger, like we've only done this like 2 times, like don't call our parents, like don't whatever, like we won't do it again, like I promise, like all these things. And Roger was just standing there and she was like, don't tell our parents, like don't call my mom, like don't do this, like we only did this like twice. We did like 30. So after like 5 minutes of like nagging on him, he's just like, fine, I won't call your parents, but I will put it in as an excused absence. Unexcused, sorry, as an unexcused absence. And we're like, please don't lower our grade, like we're graduating. And we're like, please don't lower our grade, like we're graduating, like we don't need this, like please. He's like, fine. But if I see you do it again, I swear to fucking god. Okay, he didn't actually say that, but that was kind of the hint that he was giving. And we're like, oh my god, thank you, Roger, so much, like I swear to god we won't do it again, like I'm so sorry. And we didn't do it again, but we find out later on that Roger wasn't actually the smart one. Okay, I'm not gonna say that because he's a smart man, but he wasn't the one that actually caught us skipping. It was one snitching on us. A person in our grade, and I still don't know who that was, but Roger told us someone told him. We're like, who is snitching on us? Like, why would you do this? We're on a team. You were supposed to do this. I thought we were friends. Get off my island. Like, please, bitch, why? It was the most embarrassing moment of my life. That's the first time I've ever skipped class, just saying. And probably the last, because that was very embarrassing. Okay, next story. I can't believe I'm gonna tell you this story. Okay, now that I think of it, I'm probably just gonna tell 2 stories because this story is so long and I have so much to explain. Excuse me. I have to get some water. Hold on. This was like 3 years ago. 3 or 2 years ago, probably. My door just opened by itself. My freshman year before the gymnasium, which is basically high school, we had this amazing teacher and he was so good. Now, I don't know if he quit his job freshman or sophomore year, but either one. And after that, we got a new teacher and her name, we're gonna call her Mrs. Johns. So Mrs. Johns was hired right before an old teacher he was the best teacher ever. Like, he was so good. He had us in math and science, and in Sweden you kind of mix up all these science like subjects, so the physics, biology, chemistry, all that kind of good stuff is kind of mixed up together. So, and then we kind of have math, which again, Sweden, oh my god, it's snowing in my window. Which again, Sweden kind of mixes up math too. So we just kind of took literally everything with this teacher. And when he quit his job, we were like, okay, so who's gonna be our teacher now? Because we love him. Her name is Mrs. Wait, what did I call her? Mrs. Johns. And we're like, oh, is she good? And he's like, I've never met her, but probably. Next year rolls around where we are starting to have Mrs. Johns. And so she comes in the first day of school and she tells us a bunch of stuff about herself. And she seemed really nice. And I immediately got a super good feeling about her. Like, I was just super happy to have her as a teacher, and I was super excited to have her as a teacher. And then it kind of went downhill. We started realizing that she did not do her job. I am a very good math student, and I'm just a math kid, you know what I mean? I'm very good at science and math. Those are my like strongest subjects. I mean, not really, but like I'm a very good student in those subjects. I've always gotten A's, at very rare times B's. And when Mrs. Johns started teaching, her teaching was very, very different from what we were used to. And in the beginning, I just thought that, you know, I'm not used to her teaching because she was very, like, she explained stuff very bad. Like, she would explain things halfway, turn around, start writing on the board her own thoughts. So in the math problem, for instance, if she went through something, she would say something halfway, turn her head, and just write on like the equation on the board without saying anything. She would just write it down as you do in your head on your piece of paper, you know what I mean? So she was writing the equation and just solving it, not saying anything, thinking that we would like look at the board and just know what she means. So maybe a lot of you should do that. Maybe that's just me being a super spoiled brat. I feel like I'm super duper spoiled and like everyone's just gonna be like, oh, she's such a dumb bitch. But no, she was really, really bad. Like, she would explain halfway. She would not explain the entire thing, stop in her own sentence, turn around, and just do it quietly. And get to the answer, not explain, and be like, here it is. I mean, you can probably look at an equation and be like, okay, get a fair share of amount of information, what you know. But she would just write on the board the entire thing, not explaining anything, and just get the answer, and just get the answer and be like, here it is. And so, at first, I started asking a bunch of questions. Sorry, I'm touching my hair a lot. I started asking a lot of questions to her about everything. I'm like, how did you get that? How'd you get that? And she would just be like, she would just read me the question and say the answer. Yeah, my question was, how'd you get that? Not, what did you get and what's the question? So she would just read the question again and say the answer. So we didn't know how to solve problems. She would not tell us because I don't think she really understood my question is my conclusion to that, because I would ask her, how'd you get from here to here? And she would read me what the original equation was and the answer. And it didn't matter, okay, no, but I don't mean this. I mean, how'd you get that? And she would do the same thing. So, needless to say, she was very strange. So a lot of people started getting very irritated with her because every time you would raise your hand for help, she would do the same thing. And we were like, yeah, but that's not the question. Not only that, she was very rude. She was very rude to people. She was very backhanded complimenting people. One time I did not wear makeup to school. She said to me, Sasha, you look very sick. And I said, oh, I'm not wearing makeup. And she just kind of giggled and walked away. That's kind of rude. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to come off like spoiled or anything, but she was just it's hard to like say everything that she did because she was just very, very like a lot. She would so my best friend Elvira, she would ask her questions and she would get treated like a dog. I'm not even kidding. Like, if she would ask her a question, she would just be like, shut. If Elvira said something, she would just be like, shush. Like, woof. Clearly, we were not really used to her way of teaching. So this was going on for such a long time, and I did not understand like anything that she did. Remind me, we had her in math and we had her in science. Now, both of those things, I did not understand anything. Like, I went from an A to like a C. So I said this to my mom, and she would start holding like private classes with me and my two best friends at my house. So every time we would go through something new, we would go to my house and would have our mom explain, or my mom, because my mom is super duper good at that. She's an engineer, so she's very, very smart. And she would teach us that. And then all of a sudden she's like, don't you guys learn this in school? And we would just explain to her like, no, Mrs. Johns is like so bad at explaining and she sucks. And then we explained everything that happened to her and how she treats Elvira and like everything like that. And she was like, oh, that sounds very, very weird. And we're like, yeah, It does. So parent-student conference are going on, and me and my mom go to it, and we're gonna go speak to Mrs. Johns. And I had said to my mom, before that, I had said previously to my mom that ask her to call the headmaster, the principal of the school, and tell what was going on with the students and Mrs. Johns, because we were all fighting with her all the time because we did not understand. So all of a sudden, someone would raise their hand and be like, I don't fucking understand, like literally like that. Because people were angry. I mean, I know that's very, very rude and you shouldn't do that, but people were angry because nobody understood anything, and you have to, in math, for instance, you can't just skip certain parts. You know what I mean? You have to learn everything step by step. You have to build on your already known knowledge. So people were very, very rude. She was very much ruder back. Like, she would sometimes, when people asked a question, she would just like be so rude back, and oh my god. So my mom calls the principal and she's like, I've heard there's a lot of people and a lot of like young girls come to me and my daughter and doesn't know what to do, and we have so much problem, and like all of Sasha's friends doesn't understand her, like all this stuff, like just basically telling a bunch of things. The principal was like, do you want to put Sasha in an extra math class? And my mom was like, no, she needs a math class. Like, she needs a functional teacher, for God's sake. So we go to the conference or whatever, and we'd sit down. Instantly, she's not having me and my mom. And then so she puts my grade up there, and she's like, so Sasha was on an A before, or B, whatever I was on, and now she's on a C. And she said, what happened, Sasha? And I said, well, I don't really understand your way of teaching. Like, I don't know what you mean by certain things. Like, sometimes I think your like way of teaching is maybe too high of a level for our class, like, all these kinds of things. Being super nice. Like, I was so nice about it because I didn't want to be rude. She's instantly just brushing me off. She's like, oh, because you guys probably had a bad teacher before me, like, he didn't teach you anything. Mind you, he was like the best teacher ever. Like, he was so good at educating us. Like, his way of teaching was amazing. So my mom goes, no, I think that means that the way you teach is not really reaching out to the kids. To the kids. She then proceeds on saying, I have a very, very high education. And my mom kind of interrupts. She's like, oh, I'm sure you do. And she's like, I do. We get it, girl. And my mom was like, okay. She then proceeds on saying, the class doesn't understand it because the teacher before me was super bad. This is the level they should be on. So my mom was like, well, yeah, but you can't really jump to that level, you know what I mean? You kind of have to build on it, don't you think? And she's just like nagging back and forth, and she doesn't really give my mom an answer. She doesn't do anything about it, and we're like, we're done. So when we get out of there, my mom's like, okay, I officially do not really like her. And I'm like, me either. So after this, a lot of teachers and like kids complained on the student-teacher conference things. So we got the principal to get us a sub to be there all the time with us. So not only did we have her, but we had another guy, the sub, to be there all the time, so we wouldn't fight with the teacher, because we were fighting a lot at the time. We would like, so many people would be like so backfiring with her, and they would like fight back with her and all that, which you should not do. Like, that's so disrespectful. But our class didn't learn anything, and this was over a course of 2 years, 2 or 1 year, I don't know, but such a long time where we could have literally have learned so much stuff, which I still don't know. So he was there, and thank God we loved him. He was so nice, and he was such a good math teacher. Now, mind you, he was not a math teacher. Like, he was a priest, because I went to a Christian school, so he was a priest, and he was just basically there, and he was such a good math teacher compared to the actual fucking math teacher. Still so aggressive. Like, don't you understand that? Like, he was better at explaining things than the actual math teacher, and he was a priest. So we loved that sub, and me and my best friend kind of worked together at that point, because we always do. Like, I love working with her. Like, Amelia and I just worked together. Like, we're teammating. So we stopped asking Mrs. Jones for questions. Like, we stopped racing her. We kind of just take help from his sub, because he was a lot better, duh. So once it was kind of quiet in the room, and a lot of people were gone that day. I don't know why. It was just kind of like, I think it was like 10 students in there. And she was walking around, and then our sub was walking around too, and me and Amelia were working together, me and my best friend. And then all of a sudden, we're like, the sub and his name, let's just say his name was Brian. We're like, Brian, excuse me, can you help us? Mrs. Johns turns around, and she goes, oh, you don't want help from me? Literally literally in that tone. We're like, oh no, like we just, you know, we thought you were busy, whatever, like just shaking off. And she's like, if you don't want help from me, you can tell me. Okay. And we're like, no, we just thought you were busy. And she's like, oh, I'm not, so I can help you. And we're like, great. So she helps us, and of course, all she does is write the problem and the answer. It doesn't help us at all, so we take help from the sub anyways, after she had left. So this was the final straw, and this is where I'm getting at. So all this was just kind of background info. Oh my god. So we were having a super duper big test. We got to know beforehand, like 2 weeks in before, that we were having this test, because it was a huge test. All of our classes were getting hyped up, and we were getting like, we were, you know, trying our best to actually understand, because, you know, she didn't do anything. And I'm not saying that she isn't smart. She just wasn't really good with our class, and I don't know why. Maybe we didn't have that energy or chemistry or whatever, but she, pun intended, but she was no good. And in chemistry and whatever, like physics, we were just not getting it, but we gave up. But math is so much more important to our class, and it's such a like bigger subject in general and whatever. So that's what we kind of struggled with. Science, our class had given up at that point. So literally a day before the test, she's like, you guys can ask me whatever questions you have, like whatever you have, just like ask it for tomorrow's test. And we're like, fine, whatever. So we asked her a bunch of questions, tried to get the freaking like answer. Mind you, so many teachers have actually, or the principal I should say, have talked to her so many times that she's actually gotten a little better. And we're like, okay, finally this is kind of working out. She's actually trying to explain, and we're kind of getting it a little bit. So that day was good, and we're like, okay, that's fine. So at the end of the class period, I should say maybe 30 minutes before we get out, she was like, oh, and this is also on the test, and gives us a new chapter piece that we have not worked with before. And yes, maybe that's like common for you if you're in college, or common if you, well, whatever. We were like 14 at the time. That's just, you know. And I feel like I'm so spoiled when I say it, but our class was not used to it, and we're like 14 at the time. If you're in college, maybe that's okay. Maybe if you're a lot smarter than our class, but our class was like stupid, so I don't know. We were probably stupid, that's probably why, but you know what I mean. It wasn't an entire chapter, but it was like a lot anyways. Excuse me, Mrs. Johns? I almost said her real name. Excuse me, Mrs. Johns, we don't know how do you do that. And she's like, well, this is how you do it. So she starts talking about it, and we're like, well, I mean, I don't know if you can put it on the test if we don't know it. Like, we haven't worked with it at all. And she's like, oh my god, you guys should know this. Like, she was just starting to go off on us. She's like, you guys should know this. Like, you guys should whatever. Okay, no, whatever. And our class was getting lit. Like, our class, not like lit, but our classes are getting so mad, and we're like, so many people are raising their hands, like, you can't do this, like, I won't take the test, I won't be sick tomorrow if you're gonna put that on the test, like, you can't do that, you can't give us that, like, being so rude to her. She was so rude, and I know that's kind of rude to say that, but so many people were mad. I mean, you would be mad too, right? Like, of course we were mad. So our class is going off, and so many people are, like, screaming at her. One of my best friends actually stood up and left the class. Like, she was just like stood up, grabbed her stuff, and she like walked out. Like, she was so freaking mad. She's like, I'm not gonna take the test tomorrow, I'm out of here. Avira raised her hand, and she's like, I don't think you should do that, because we haven't done that, and I don't think that's fair. Again, she's like, shh, like to Elvira, like treating her like a dog, and Elvira's like, no, like, what are you doing? Like, that's not fair. You can't tell me to shut up. Like, I'm asking you a question. Like, you're my teacher. Literally what she said. She's like, you can leave my classroom if whatever. Like, obviously, like, she has the authority to, like, cross you out, whatever. And, you know, you can't really talk back to a teacher, but that's what we did. And we were so mad. So many people were so livid. At the end of the class period, literally, like, 5-10 people were left. And it was me and my best friend. And then our class gets out, and she was so mad. Our sub was not there that day, which is why that happened, because otherwise he would have been there to stop it. He comes in like because she like walked out to like grab him or whatever, because it was getting chaotic, and he came in the classroom. So like 10 people were still there, because all of them had stood up and left the classroom, the other people, because they were like, because she had previously said, like, if you are not taking the test tomorrow, if you're not accepting this, you can walk out. So a lot of people stood up and walked, actually. So yeah, that was kind of crazy. It was actually super crazy. So the class gets out, and I'm still there. So they all stand up and walk out, and I'm livid at this point. I'm so mad, because my grade had been dropped to a C, and I knew I was going to get like a D if I, didn't know that part. Like, that would be a part of the big quiz or test. Like, a super big part, like an entire chapter that we didn't know. And I was like, oh my god, I was livid at that point. I was so mad. I hadn't talked back to her. Okay, I hadn't talked really during that class. Like, I was kind of quiet because I was super duper mad. And when I get mad, I get really quiet. She dropped a comment when they all get out. I can't remember what she said, but she dropped something that was so nasty and so rude. Like, they should be able to do this, like they're high school kids, all the kind of stuff. I regret this, but not really. I was so mad at her. I walk up to her and oh my god, I can't believe I said this. I was crazy. Don't do this. Yell at me in the comments if you want to. I know I'm dumb and I shouldn't have done it, but I did it and I stood up for myself. And if you want to call me disrespectful, you go ahead and do that, but I was so freaking mad. You would be too. This is what I did, guys. I walked up to her. I said, Mrs. Johns, excuse me. She's like, yeah, Sasha. And I'm like, I hate you. And I will not spend another hour in this room with you. And I walk out. I can't believe I said it. That was purely because I was boiling. My blood was boiling inside of me. I was so freaking mad at her. That's what I said. I said it in the calmest way possible. I said it in this tone exactly. I was like, I hate you. She didn't say anything back to me. I walked out of there. Right as I walk out of there, I start crying. I dropped to the floor where all my girlfriends are sitting outside. I dropped to the floor crying because I was so mad. And when I get mad, I cry. I was so freaking mad. And I called my sister. I'm like, I just told my teacher I hate her. I just told my teacher I hate her. And she's like, excuse me, Sash? Of course, Mrs. Johns goes to the principal and tells her that she has to take Sasha in because she hated her or whatever. So I get called in by the principal and I sit there and I'm like, yeah, I hate her. And she's like, why do you hate her? I'm like, I tell you this entire story to her, like why I hate her so much. And she was just like, yeah, well, you shouldn't have said that. I'm like, no, I know, it's disrespectful as hell and you should not do that. I know. It just flew out of me. I'm so sorry. And yes, all that kinds of good stuff. I apologize. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I cannot be in there with her. I don't understand. The class doesn't understand. She treats my best friend as a dog. All this kind of stuff. I just crying at the principal, and she's like, okay. After that, I go back to class. I dry my tears. I'm like, bitch, let's go. When I get home, my parents get a call from the principal. But I never sat in the classroom with her ever again after that. So many students and parents, and I know so many teachers hated her. They fought all the time because she was being so rude to them too. She was actually fired, and I never sat in a classroom with her ever again. I know I shouldn't have said it. I know it was super duper rude, and I shouldn't have. But at that time, I was super duper mad. Of course, my blood was boiling, and that was the last straw. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. If you want more storytime videos, then let me know in the comments below. I love you guys so much, and thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to be yourself and stand up for yourself. Maybe not in that way. I know that was very, very extreme what I did, but also always stand up for yourself. You're amazing, and don't let people run you over. Don't. You're amazing, and if people don't see how amazing you are, girl, they ain't worth your time. I love you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!